University of Lagos, Idiaraba, embarked on a protest over epileptic supply of water and electricity in their hostels, and indeed the poor state of other facilities that has made the learning environment unconducive. The students accused the federal government of neglecting facilities at the college, which are becoming inadequate to accommodate the increasing number of students admitted annually for medicine and allied courses. The students noted that the condition of their hostels is not healthy for the supposed medical students. These and other issues concerning tertiary institutions in Nigeria will be engaging our attention on Kaakaki this Monday, and my guest is Oluwaseun Ogunbona. He is the president of the College of Medicine and Pharmaceutical Science Students Association. He is, of course, in the 500 level. He's a medical student. We're glad to have you. Welcome to Kaakaki Studio. Yeah, and Oluwaseun is being joined by Babatunde Alagbada. Babatunde is a dental student at 300 level, also at the Medical College School. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Let me begin with you, Oluwaseun. Now, what exactly is the grounds of the medical students? What prompted that protest?
The grounds of students actually is the inadequate facility at the medical school. We have a lack of basic amenities like electricity, water supply in the hostel, and we know that these are just basic necessities. These are things that we need for our day-to-day activities. We don't have a regular supply of electricity in the hostel. At best, what we have is a not too regular 7 to 10 generator supply, which is jointly run by LUT and the college. LUT is Lagos University in Hospital, and college is the College of Medicine University of Lagos, which is our own concern. And this has been ongoing for so long. The protest that was held recently occurred at a time when students, were having our semester examination, and unfortunately for us, we didn't have light for about 72 hours. There was no light, there was no water, and we have been trying to accommodate all these things for so long. But because it happened at an examination time, the students were pushed to a wall.
That was when the impact was really felt.
On the protest. That was when the protest started. And apart from water and no light, there are issue of insufficient classroom. But I will tell you that the number of students in Idiaraba has increased, and no new structure has been built. The last one that was built was as far back as 1974, and since then there has been an increase in the number of departments. Like radiography is a new department. Recently we have nursing, sciences, and medical labs, technology. So there is a continued increase in the number of students, but the facilities remain the same.
So it's actually.
And so because of that, we have congestion. We have students being poorly accommodated. So that's why the hostel, same number of hostels as far back as 1974. What we only had was the female hostel in OPA that got born was being rebuilt after a fire incident. But apart from that, no new facility has been built, and student number has continued to increase. So we have a hostel that was built for 3 people as far back as in the 70s. Only 2 people stayed in the hostel. I have like 6 students staying in that hostel.
And the room is still the same size?
Still the same size. So that's some of the problems. Apart from poor laboratory facilities.
No, we'll come to all of that. Let me hear from Babatunde. Babatunde, you are a dental student, and the way the school is now with the facilities on ground, what do you say about the facilities for your course of study?
Okay, as a dental student, the facility for us in the dental school is just not something to write home about. For example, they admit students, more than like 100 dental students in a year, and they just find a means to cut them short in one way or the other, to send them to other departments before they get to their clinical days, because they have just 40 seats for dental students, because they have 40 people to cater for. That's just what they can cater for. But why admitting them at first? So when they get to their 300 level, they ask some people to go to other departments. They get to increase cutoffs to make people move to other departments because they cannot accommodate the dental students in the dental school. So the facilities are nothing to write home about in the dental school.
They are not adequate.
They are not adequate for the students.
And let's look at you did say something about the laboratories, because I know that as a medical student you do more of even practical works than the theoretical aspect of the studies, or you do both together. Now, what do you say about the laboratories? Do you think the equipment you have there meets international standard and you can compete favorably with your counterparts elsewhere outside Nigeria?
Yeah, the laboratory equipment, many of them are outdated, apart from them not being sufficient for students. Because, for instance, let me give you an instance. In anatomy, that's a 200 level course. Our practical has to do with the use of cadaver. Cadaver is a prepared human body. And let me use. I want to define cadaver for you very well. Cadaver is a human body that is prepared for dissection. So students need to make use of cadaver in 200 level when they are doing the anatomy, so that they can be able to learn about the different parts of the body. We dissect ourselves, so we see the course of the artery, the nerves, the muscles, and what have you. Many of our lecturers who were fortunate enough to have studied in 1970, 1960, told us that this will be one student per cadaver. But in my own 200 level, we had about 30 students on a bay, that's one cadaver. And after that, the situation gets worsened
every year.
That means that someone like him, when he was in 200 level, because he's now in 300 level, which he does recently, they have more than 40 students to a cadaver. So the materials are not enough. In physiology, we have about 2 polygraph machines being used, whereas two students at most supposed to have access to a polygraph machine so that they can be able to perform their lab work, record with the polygraph machine. And most of these equipment are outdated. Equipment that were used in 1970 still being used, maybe because of good management skills by the authority. Maybe they have been properly kept. But the fact is that in other parts of the world, we have more recent equipment being used. So what we have at best is that we have just been able to make use of what we have, which is very commendable. We've been able to adapt to the situation very, very well. And that is why, even though when we go outside, when students from our graduate go to do their postgraduate studies outside the country, find out that they still compete favorably well with their counterparts who finish from the other part. Another thing we have discovered is that maybe because of the very bad condition we are made to learn, we have to struggle, we have to do extra work.
Do extra work. At the end, you get better than the people that had all the
sometimes we find students from College of Medicine doing USMLE and doing very well, even than people all over the from other parts of the world. So that is the
you did one recently and you excelled in that.
Yes.
In that course. What was that?
I did an intercalated program in physiology.
Okay.
Alright.
So what was the score?
It was a University of Lagos program.
Okay.
Yeah, because I got distinctions when I was 200 level and 300 level. So I was given the opportunity to do a 1-year program in physiology. So it's a BSc program which is supposed to be for 4 years. So I did it in 1 year.
Okay.
And I finished with a first class.
That's great. That means if you can survive in this kind of condition and you did excellently well, you can actually survive, anywhere else where you have all the modern equipment at your disposal. All right. Now, what do you think this says of higher institutions generally? People say funding has actually been a problem in tertiary institutions. Do you think that is exactly what is affecting your school?
Yes, I think that's exactly what's affecting all tertiary institutions in Nigeria, because why funding the primary schools, the secondary school, and putting less funds the tertiary institutions? Why? Because actually the tertiary institution gives you the major skills you need to be whoever you want to be. It builds you. It's built. For example, now you being a doctor. Okay, you want to be a doctor from your primary school, secondary school. You still want to be a doctor. Then it's when you get to the medical school that they really teach you those things that you make use of when you leave school. While in primary school, secondary school, you are still learning the same thing what others are learning. So, and the condition is not favorable at all for us to learn in it. But since students have adapted to them, like they are getting it like comfortable for them, which is not true. Like other part of the world, like they might have their own problems, but not the social basic amenities that they are supposed to have. So I think the problem is from the federal government, because okay, like when we're having the protest, assuming we're under the Lagos State government, we're actually planning to walk down to the Lagos State House of Assembly or stuff like that. But because we're under the federal government, there's no way we could.
You have to walk to Abuja to do such a protest first.
So it all goes to the federal government. They should put more money, more funds to the treasury institution. It will go a long way to help.
Now, before getting to Abuja, to the federal government, are your school authorities, are they aware of what you're going through currently?
Yes, the school authorities, okay, they told us they've written so many letters to the Minister of Education, the President, and they've done so many things about it. But the last protest, the Vice Chancellor assured us that this time that they've pushed everybody to the wall, that he will do something about it. And since that, even after the protest, like 3 weeks after it now, we've had at least 15 hours of power supply. Like, it's commendable. So the student now thinks, okay, this thing can really happen. So why has it been happening since? It means if we push further, that means we can even have 24 hours lights, even not within the college only, throughout the country. We can, if we push further, if people let their voices heard.
So that means the students have actually been keeping quiet for so long, and that's why if you can get 15 hours of power supply within 3 weeks of protest, and you've been having just, you said 7 to 9 p.m.
2 hours.
So that shows things can really be done with adequate political will.
Things can be done. But what we have now, the way I will look at it, is a temporary solution to the problem, because the provost told us when the protest started, when we met the provost, because the march was first to the admin block of the college, the provost came down and addressed students, told us that they're going to make sure that they do whatever they can in the meantime to address the situation. And so, although it was the turn of loot that Lagos University Hospital, I said before that the generator was jointly owned by Lagos University Hospital and College of Medicine. So they have a formula for purchasing diesel into the generator. So at that time, loot workers were on strike, and it was the loot turn to supply diesel. So because loot were on strike, there was no diesel for the generator. And hitherto, the provost already wrote a letter to the PACM company in Nigeria, as he told us that they should try as much as possible to give us uninterrupted power supply as much as possible, because we are in examination condition. So he told them that for the next 8 weeks that they should do that. We are still within the 8 weeks now.
So the fear now is that maybe after 8 weeks everything goes back to status quo.
It's possible, but we have met with the Vice Chancellor that we are suggesting that they should get a generator for the medical student hostel, so that will be separated from loot, so that we will know that okay, we have a generator for the medical student hostel. Then if anything goes wrong, we know it's really within our own power, within our domain. We can really easily meet the necessary people in charge, so that they can be able to do something to make sure that we have life.
Now you did excellently well in your exam, as you stated, but I know that there are some medical students who may not have that ability to absorb easily like that or fast like that under this condition. How do you think this is affecting some of those students who have to stay in hostel that is not conducive and go to school probably to read with lanterns or torchlights and all that? Do you think they are making as much progress as they should? Maybe I should ask you before coming to him.
Okay, it's commendable that he did excellently well, even when the conditions were not at good state. But there are so many students that, okay, for example, while in 200 level, for example in my set, because of maybe the unconditional, like the unfavorable condition in the school, like more than 100 students had to receipt papers out of 300 students. So it means, okay, those people, okay, like in the JAM, when you're writing the JAM examinations, the medical students score highest. That means those people coming to the medical school, they are not dullard. So them coming to the medical school, meeting the conditions there, like there's a lot to absorb, but no good environment to do that. So everybody just gets unstabilized, and going to a gross lab where you meet dead bodies, about 8 dead bodies. There's no light, there's no fan, there's no AC. As in the heat, the smell of what they used to preserve the bodies, you get choking and stuff like that. So it's just everything goes to funding the tertiary institution. That's what I would just say.
Okay, all right. I agree. Like you rightly said, there has been an increase in the failure rate of students in medical school. See students sitting for an exam, and we have majority of them, as much as 50% or more, having to resit the exam, compared to then find out that there has been a relative increase in the failure rate. This cannot be attributed to the fact that maybe the students are not good academically, because you know that for you to come to a medical school, you must be above average. In fact, one of our lecturers do say that medical students are above average, and so when they keep on failing, there must be a reason why that is so. We try to reason it over and over again. What could have been the result? What could have been responsible for the failure rate, for an increase in the failure rate? And we have come to discover that it is due, if not totally, but in fact, to the fact that we don't have sufficient teaching materials. The student learning environment are not conducive. Many of the fans are not working. That when you even come to the lecture hall for a lecture, you find that many of the students at times, they are tired, they are sleeping, because the condition, the fans are not working.
Even in classrooms?
Even in classrooms. There is no light, and everywhere is hot. Students, how do you expect us to be able to learn under such a condition? So many of us have to do extra work. We have to go back to our rooms and have to go and read to be able to catch up with the pace, because the timetable is there. The academic calendar is already set. When the exam comes, you just have to do the exam. So students have to do a number of work on their own, and not everybody can be able to meet up. So that's the reason why find out that at the end of the day, when the examination comes, many of the students are not prepared. That's when they start going here and there. Medical school is a very you have a very stressful curriculum. So you have to read for a whole year before you are examined, although we have in between in-course assessment. So but when the main exam comes and you have to read what you have learned for a whole year, how many people can be able to do that, given the conditions of learning that we are?
So let's begin to look at way forward. What do you think should be done now to ensure that at least the students or the doctors we produce at the end of the day are not doctors that will kill people, but doctors that will be able to save lives? Because if you work under this kind of condition, I wonder if you will be adequately qualified to even take care of the people whom you are coming to save, because your job is a life-saving one.
Yeah. We have said that the underlying factor is underfunding of education. I think what we can do is to increase the budgetary allowance for education. Find out that at a point there was a time that we had a ASU strike, and when we made some research, we found out that the University of Cape Town in South Africa, the allocation for that university alone is more than the allocation of all the tertiary institutions combined in Nigeria. So that means that compared to neighboring countries, what we are doing in terms of funding of the educational sector is very low. So what we think we can do is that the budgetary allowance for educational sector should be increased. If that can be done, we have more funding to implement projects like building of more hostels, innovating and rebuilding of structures. So we'll be able to have better educational learning environment. So if we can do that, I know that we'll do very well. Things are going to improve.
All right. Babatunde, let's hear from you. What do you think can be done from everybody involved, the school authority, the government, and the students themselves, to ensure that what we produce are world-class doctors at the end of the day?
Okay, I'll just say the government they should save the life of the doctors, so the doctors can save the life of the people. Because while leaving the medical school, you swear an oath that your primary agenda is to save the life of the patient. So they should save our lives, then so we save the life of the people. Saving our lives, it means providing those social amenities that we need, even while reading, to become doctors. Like, you cannot dispute the fact that doctors are one of the most important people in our society, which is very necessary to take care of them. For example, now even the doctors ahead of us, they are on strike because of the facilities,
and that is even affecting the students, because without those ones ahead of us, they can't teach us. They are the ones teaching us in the clinical classes. They can't teach us. They can't take us to they can't tell us what they've learned, because medical practice is about experience. You talk to people ahead of you. So, and it all goes to the fact that the government should see more to the medical sector, more to the educational sector, and I think everything will go very well.
So you think the strike of the doctors is actually affecting you in a serious way?
Yes, because you can't go to the clinic because the doctors are not in the clinic. Because you yourself, you can't attend to patients without the doctors being there, without the permissions of the doctors. So we just stay in the hostels because the doctors are on strike. That means automatically the students who are less busy, they are on strike, they are in the hostels. So him saying that you go to class and you sleep in class is because when you are in the hostel, throughout the night you won't be able to sleep because you are dealing with mosquitoes everywhere, heat everywhere, no light, no fan, nothing. So I think they should look deeper, and they should help our authorities, because people might just be pointing fingers to who they are not supposed to point to. They should help our authorities. They should listen to the vices, or listen to the provost, because I know they are crying to them. They should just help us, and I think everything will be fine if the government get involved in it.
Just to add to some of the students, also we are also trying to see what we can do to help ourselves, and we have so many associations, like COMSA is the student union body. Recently we have been able to refurbish the reading room, able to produce an air conditioner in the reading room, so that students, but what we have is still not enough, because we are limited by the resources that we have. We have KB Club, they were able to get the Ogunbona River Basin Authority to build a borehole, which is what we depend on. We have just one borehole serving the main student hostel, which is what we depend. So if we have not done some of these things, that means the situation will have been very worse. So what we can also say is we have donor agencies who can come in to survey the situation for us, to rescue us. They are welcome. I know that the authorities will be very, very happy to receive them. So if the government is failing on its part, then there should only be a way out. We can only look out to people that can help us.
Alright, we must have to look at that. We've been taking a look at the condition of facilities at the College of Medicine, University of Lagos, Idaraba, vis-a-vis the condition of the tertiary institutions in Nigeria. And my guests have actually said that funding has become a very, very big problem, because the schools are underfunded, the facilities are just grossly inadequate to cater for the continuous rising number of students that troop in every year to study medicine. And of course, if we have to produce people who will save lives, eventually the students say their lives should be saved first. We must thank you, gentlemen, for being part of the show. My guests have been Oluwaseun Ogunbona. I hope I got that right. Yes, Ogunbona, okay. Ogunbona. He is the president, College of Medicine and Pharmaceutical Science Students Association. He is in 500 level. He's a medical student, and he's been joined by Babatunde Alagbada. Alagbada is a dental student. He's currently at a 300 level. Thank you very much. We hope somebody somewhere has listened, and everybody concerned, the authorities concerned, should be fast about this to do something to help these students out, because they are future leaders of tomorrow. It's still Kaakaki, the African Voice. Do stay with us. We'll be right back to bring you more things on the program.